Welcome to A Change is a Chance. This is our third episode. My name is Ryan Lowe, and I am a sixth grader at the Sachem School in Moraga, California. It is my goal to educate people, especially young people, about the problems in this world by interviewing different experts. I hope that as you listen to this podcast, you'll learn something and find yourself wanting to make a difference. Last episode, I talked with Mr. David Gottfried, the creator of the U.S. Green Building Council and the World Green Building Councils. He talked about the LEED certification, how money affected the council, and how typical citizens can work to reduce their CO2 usage. I recently read an interesting quote from a climate change activist from Costa Rica. The quote said, "Social change comes when 3.5% of the population is pressing for it. Not 100% for like people think." I want to be part of this 3.5%, and my goal is to make a few listeners think about being part of this change too. Speaking of change, today we have a very special guest, an author, Mr. Denis Pombriant. Hello, Mr. Pombriant.
Hi, Ryan. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Super.
Mr. Pombriant wrote a book called The Age of Sustainability and a few others. He and his company, the Beagle Research Group, research and write about disruptive technologies primarily in the software industry. He is also just as passionate about the environment. His book is a summary of each of the K waves, which you'll learn about soon. I read his book and I learned a lot from it. I recommend you read to learn about environmental, industrial, and electronic events. Mr. Pombriant is here to talk about his book and help educate us about what it takes to live a greener lifestyle. I'm happy to have you here, Mr. Pombriant.
I'm great. I'm happy to be here too, talking to you and your audience.
So, what inspired you to write your book?
Well, it's kind of interesting. When I was your age, I had many of the same interests. I've actually been following the climate issue since I was about your age, and what's interesting is that way back then, we're talking 50 years ago at least, we didn't know if all the pollution that was going into the air and the water was going to cause global warming or if it was going to cause another ice age. We just didn't know. People were concerned about it, and it was one of those things that people, scientists and people in government needed to keep an eye on. And as they kept an eye on it, and as things percolated through the news, I kept my eye on it as well. I kept in touch with it. So you could say this is a book that I've been thinking about and writing for decades. What finally made me decide to write it was when I saw a convergence between economics and the science of climate and climate science. And I think that's what we're going to be talking a lot about today, especially the economics and K waves.
Wow. So it started at a young age, and that's really cool. So what are K waves and how do they affect our modern world?
Well, K waves are a thing that's a long economic cycle. It lasts, a K wave can last 50 to 60 years. And there's something that's unique to capitalism. So K waves only go back as far as the Industrial Revolution in the 1700s when we started making textiles from using machines instead of muscle power and hand looms and hand spinning wheels and things like that. A K wave is identified by a small cluster of disruptive innovations that occur within society, within science and technology, that inventors can use to make new things for the economy. And generally, when a K wave takes off, it becomes the dominant economic activity of that era.
Well, could you tell me what all the K waves are so far?
Well, there have been 5. And let's see, in the Industrial Revolution, as I say, we went from using hand spinning wheels and hand looms to make thread and then fabric and clothing farmers typically used to make their own clothing. And 250, 300 years ago, uh, during the winter, they had nothing else to do but spin thread and make cloth and make their clothing for the year ahead. And that's what they did. Along came the introduction of water wheels, which are wheels that harness water energy from a dam that make spinning rotational force that can drive a machine. Water wheels were quickly supported by primitive steam engines, and then clever people started making machines that could make thread and make textiles without very much human input. And so that was the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. And in order to support that, we invented things like factories. And because we invented steam engines, it was very important to have coal to burn in the steam engines and iron to make the steam engines with. So all of a sudden, mining became more important than ever was. And mines have this ability or this tendency to flood when it rains. I mean, think about it. A mine is basically a big hole in the ground, and when it rains, all the water goes in. And in order to keep the mine operating, you had to be able to pump the water out of the mine. And so the steam engine was employed to do that too. So all of a sudden, we needed to make steam engines to run our factories. We needed to make steam engines to run our mines, and we needed coal to run the steam engines. And in the beginning, with the primitive steam engines, we were talking about a machine that was the size of a building. So that was the first K wave. Excuse me. The second K wave was all about steam and railroads. And more clever engineers were able to reduce the size of the steam engine from the size of a house to the size of something that would fit on rails and become a locomotive that would pull a train, or that would sit in a boat in a ship and produce mechanical propulsion for the ship. That was a big deal. After that, there was an age of electricity and chemistry that revolutionized another part of life. That was followed by an age of manufacturing and heavy construction, during which we had sort of another industrial revolution where we started 100 years ago or 120 years ago or so. We started mass producing things like automobiles and sewing machines and almost anything in factories. And it provided a lot of jobs for people. And that gave way to a later age of electricity and things like electrochemistry, which sounds kind of highfalutin, but what it means is using electricity to separate precious metals, for example, from seawater, which is how we were able to make aluminum, and make aluminum so cheap that it could be used for a variety of things. So after that, after manufacturing, we get into the age that we're in right now, which is the age of information and telecommunications. And in this age, the economy is centered around computers and software and consulting and communications through satellites and the internet and Wi-Fi and all of those things coming together to drive the economy. So long story short, those are the K waves that I've found. And right now, I think we're at the end of the age of information and telecommunications.
Where are we going into right after that?
Well, every K wave sort of runs out of gas. The initial innovation becomes commoditized. And that simply means that it goes from being very expensive to being very inexpensive so that anybody can have that innovation. So if you go back 50 years, computers were very expensive, and a company might have had one computer to run all of its operations. Today, we carry around in our pockets a computer. We call it a mobile device. I bet you've got one. And yeah, and those devices have more computing power and communications power and other kinds of power than a whole room full of computer equipment did, 2 generations ago. Now, what's interesting is that a couple of generations ago, you could spend $1 million on a computer room. Today, for a few $100s, you got something that's more powerful that fits into your pocket. So that's the commoditization curve. And when things commoditize like that, you can't really make up for their economic power through just selling more of them. Today, technology employs a lot of people in making devices and making software and stuff, but it's a situation that's hollowing out, that isn't providing the kind of job growth and new innovations that we saw a long time ago. Now, to be fair, technology is not going away. The technology, the era that we see, is going to go on and on. Just like railroads are still prevalent today, but they're not the driving force of the economy. So what happens next? Well, what happens next, I think, if you look at the disruptive innovations that are in the market right now, and you look at what the big need is in society, it's a need for a way to fix the climate, take some carbon out of the environment, and keep us from burning ourselves up. So I think the new K-wave that is beginning right now is about sustainability, and that drove the title of the book.
Sustainability. That's the K-wave we're mainly here to focus on. So, what do you think we humans should focus on in the age of sustainability?
Well, that's an interesting question, because a lot of people are focusing on a lot of individual things, and I think what we need to focus on is a complete solution. So, for example, some people are saying, "Gee, we ought to plant 1 trillion trees and take some carbon out of the air like that." And that's an interesting idea. I don't want to shortchange it, but it's not a full solution in and of itself, because we need not only to take carbon out of the air and the environment, but we have to stop putting carbon into it. And in order to stop putting carbon into the environment, we have to find an alternative for fossil fuels. And those alternatives are available. We've seen great progress in things like solar and wind, which are probably most common, and most people understand those things. But there are other ideas circulating. For example, near where you live, up in Sonoma Valley, there's a company called Calpine that generates electricity, about 750 megawatts, from steam vents, from steam coming out of geysers in the ground. And that kind of technology, people at MIT tell me, is abundant and able to completely replace the fossil fuel paradigm that we have right now. Replacing fossil fuels is a huge job. It's going to take decades. It's something that should get started, but that would be an example.
So we have to get to one big solution for humanity?
We'd have to get to a solution that involves taking carbon out of the air, not putting carbon into the air, and probably some other things too. Climate change is already causing us some problems. For example, California isn't getting the rain it used to get. And that's a problem because rain provides us with fresh water. So, down in San Diego, in Carlsbad, within the last few years, they built a seawater desalinization plant that makes about, I want to say 50 million gallons of fresh water a day. And I think that kind of thing needs to be rolled into any kind of solution that we're thinking about, because it's no longer just emissions and carbon. It's what do we do for fresh water, for example. It's also how do we make sure that we have enough farmland to grow the food that feeds all of the people that are going to be here on the planet by the middle of this century. By the middle of this century, we expect to have about 10 billion people on the planet, which is about 2.5 billion more than we have right now. And just for comparison, that's like saying, let's add another India and another China to the world's population. Where are they going to live? How are they going to eat? How are they going to drink water? Those are things that we need to think about now so that they have what they need to live. So that all rolls into the age of sustainability.
So a large solution that involves everything to protect the future.
That's right.
Okay. And how do you think typical citizens can responsibly go through this K-wave?
Well, there are a lot of things that individual citizens can do. Some of the more obvious ones are you can call up your electric company and tell your electric company that you only want to use sustainable, renewable electricity. So, in other words, you don't want to use electricity that's from burning fossil fuel, and they can source that and get it to you. And you'll pay a little bit more for it, but you'll be doing a good thing for the environment. Something else that you could do is maybe put solar panels on your roof. Something else might be taking public transportation once in a while instead of driving your car. There's a company, a Chinese company, I think, that has a factory. No, it's an American company in a factory in the Los Angeles area that makes electric buses. We should be deploying more of those buses. In fact, Los Angeles has a project to have nothing but electric buses within the next few years, and they're buying them all domestically made. So those would be some easy examples. Some greater examples might be to become politically active and aware and to vote for sustainability in all of its forms when you vote. And that means voting for candidates that express that interest, an interest that is in line with your interests. So there's all stuff like that. And then, if you own a business, there are a lot of businesses in Silicon Valley, for example, that have buses that take their employees to work. Those buses shouldn't be running on diesel fuel. Those buses should be running on electricity. The more and more you think about it, the easier it seems that you can just make wise choices and have solutions that mirror your values.
Because of these solutions, do you think that carbon dioxide is the most urgent part of climate change?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Carbon dioxide is not the only greenhouse gas. For example, we flare off a great deal of methane, which makes carbon dioxide. But there's a lot of methane that comes out of oil wells, for example, that isn't burned, and it goes into the atmosphere. And it's actually a more supportive of greenhouse problems than carbon dioxide. But if you look at the numbers, something like 98% of the problem that we have is with carbon dioxide. So getting a handle on carbon dioxide is kind of important.
Okay, I see. And what have you done personally to improve the Earth's current quality?
What have I done personally? Oh my goodness. Well, I don't drive very much. I'm very careful about where I go with a car. I buy 1 tank of gas a month. I know, hard to believe, isn't it? I use green electricity, so I've already told my electric company that I only want electricity from renewable sources. Um, I live in a condominium community, so that I don't have a freestanding house, which uses more energy than a condominium. I'm also careful about the food that we eat. We tend to eat more chicken and fish than anything else, so that the food chain that we're attached to isn't generating a lot of carbon dioxide. So things like that. Um, you may not know this. In fact, there's no reason why you should know this. I I was the president of my condominium association for 20 years, and I just retired a few years ago. But during that time, we did things like installing low flow toilets in all of the 309 units that we were responsible for, saving several gallons of water for every time we flush. We also installed thermostats that enable people to set back their heating when they leave the house. So, if 72 is where you got it set, when you go to work and nobody's home, you knock it back to 65. That saves some energy. Um, what else have we done? We've done some other stuff. Well, I don't want to. Yeah, I can't. It doesn't come to my mind right now. But things like that, practical things that. Oh, here, one last thing. We insulated the ceilings, the roofs, in every condominium, adding over a foot of blown-in insulation, which immediately saw great reduction in the heating bills for everybody in the complex. So those are some of the things that we've done, that I've done, I've been part of.
So you've done a lot of things for yourself and your community. That's really cool.
Well, that's, you know what, when you're in politics, even at some small level like that, that's your job. That's your job to take care of the people that elected you.
I see. About politics, would you ever run for political office?
I probably wouldn't want. No. The short answer is no. I've done politics on a very local level. The small community that I live in, it was very satisfying. I can still participate in the political process by supporting candidates and doing things like phone banking, which I've done, things like that. But running for political office at this point, probably not.
Okay. What are ways the younger generation can help slow down the effects of global warming?
What are some of the ways that the younger generation can slow down the effects of global warming? Oh, a number of things. For example, there's a trend going on right now well, a couple of trends that I see. One is young people are waiting 1 or 2 years longer to get driver's licenses. So if you can get a driver's license, depending on your state, at 16 or 16 and a half, a lot of kids are waiting until they're 18 before they get driver's licenses, which means they're not driving, they're not buying cars, they're not supporting cars, they're not buying gasoline, things like that. Yeah, they still have to get around, but it's a lot easier on the environment to bum a ride or to take public transportation than it is to own and operate a car. So that's one thing. Another thing I see young people doing right now is moving to cities after they graduate college. And there's some good practical reasons for that. Some of the best jobs you can find are in cities. San Francisco has, for example, has a lot of jobs. Silicon Valley has a lot of jobs that young people flock to. When you live in a city, your need for a car goes way down, and many cities, if not most, have pretty good public transportation. At least public transportation is good enough to get you to work, to get you around the city. And if you need to go on a trip, you can get a ride to the airport or get a ride to the train station or even rent a car. All of those things are going to reduce your impact on the environment. And then, as I've talked about earlier, um, paying attention to what you eat and the supply chain that delivers food to you. Is it heavy on things like beef and pork and lamb, or is it more balanced with chicken and fish? Is it vegetarian or vegan? All of those things are lifestyle choices, and they have direct energy consequences as well.
Okay. What about people who are like 7 or 8? What can they mainly focus on?
Um, I would say at 7 or 8, you're too young to have to focus on stuff like that. I think it's more important for parents of people who are 7 or 8 years old to um, pay attention to these things for them and to educate the 7 or 8-year-old child about the environment, about our place on the planet.
Okay, that makes sense. What can the current government do to improve on the age of sustainability?
Well, there are a number of things that the government can do. Yeah, perhaps you've heard um, we have an infrastructure deficit. That's a fancy way of saying our roads and bridges and things like that need to be improved or repaired or maintained. Um, we waste billions of dollars a year being stuck in traffic, for example, trying to get to and from work. Um, so infrastructure spending is something that government could do. Another thing that government could do is assist businesses in making their office buildings more energy efficient and compliant with standards like LEED. I forget what it stands for, but LEED certified buildings use the least amount of energy anywhere, and that's an important standard. And increasingly, businesses are paying attention to that and doing what they can to make their buildings LEED compliant. Um, Businesses can also do more to promote the idea of working from home. Maybe not every day, but I work from home. I work for myself, and I know an increasing number of people that work at home. They work on their computers. They work on the telephone. Um, they do work that they can get done very easily on the phone. They can even have meetings through their computers. So when you work at home, you don't have that problem of transportation and the pollution that goes with it. So those are some easy things that businesses can do.
I see.
Oh,
And
Ryan, one other thing, if I could just add this, I think there's a tremendous opportunity for businesses to actually generate new industries and to generate profits by looking at what they can do to be more sustainable. And I think we're seeing companies take an attitude towards being more sustainable simply to make money. And I think that's a wonderful thing. In fact, the whole idea of a K wave is based on uh, people developing industries and making money and employing other people. So all those things are good, and I think to the extent that businesses do those things, they're playing right into the sweet spot of the K wave.
so it's a good thing for businesses to develop more sustainable things.
I think so.
And what do you think about the Green New Deal?
Well, I think it has a lot of good ideas in it. I think the Green New Deal uh, has a lot of elements that I talk about in my book, although I package it up a little bit differently. The key difference between what I see and the Green New Deal, if I understand the Green New Deal correctly, is that I'm expecting that the business community, and the economy in general will gravitate towards sustainability, more or less naturally, because it's not because it's the right thing to do, but because it's the profitable thing to do. When people talk about the Green New Deal, they talk about the environment, but they also talk about wages and healthcare benefits and a lot of things that are follow-on to what happens in the early part of a K-wave when economic activity increases significantly. But I think it's not a good idea to expect the government to lead that charge. I think government typically in the early parts of a K-wave tends to get out of the way and let the marketplace work. And I'm kind of hopeful that that's the direction we'll go in. So Green New Deal has a lot of good ideas. I don't know if they're packaged right just yet.
Okay. What would it take for the U.S. to pass it, though?
Well, I don't know. I think there'd be a big argument about whether or not it should pass. If you study history, the idea of the New Deal goes back to the 1930s and the Franklin Roosevelt administration, President Franklin Roosevelt. When they did the original New Deal, it was a loose association or affiliation of a bunch of different programs that were designed to attack one area of the Great Depression or a different area of the Great Depression. So there were programs that helped industries get back on their feet. There were other programs that helped labor. There were programs that helped, for example, the Civilian Conservation Corps was a big program that employed over 2 million people to restore the national parks, build roads, plant trees, things like that. But they were all disparate, separate programs, and many of them got passed individually through Congress. And the big difference with the Green New Deal is the people that are promoting the Green New Deal think that they can just say, put all this into one big bill that'll pass Congress. And of course, it's very hard to get a bill through Congress. And the bigger the bill is, the more things it does, the more congressmen and senators are going to raise flags and say, oh, I don't want to support that, but I do want to support this. So I think the thing to do if you want to pass some sustainability and green initiatives is to chop them up into bite-sized pieces and pass them individually.
Okay, so the way that you think the Green New Deal can get passed is if each part of it gets passed individually.
That's right. Let each part stand or fall on its merits.
That's really cool. And do you ever think you will write a new book on sustainability?
I'm thinking about it. I'm doing some research right now, and it would obviously have to be a follow-up to the first book. So I have some ideas. I haven't written anything yet, but I'm at least thinking about it. I'm, as we say in the trade, noodling on it.
I don't know what that means.
Some people refer to the brain as your noodle. So I'm thinking about it. I'm noodling on it.
Oh, okay, I see. Well, thank you very much for joining us and for your contributions to sustainability. I learned a lot from you. Bye, Mr. Pombriant.
Hey, Ryan, it's good to meet you and to talk with you about sustainability. And I want to encourage you to keep doing what you're doing because you're doing something important.
Thank you. Well, so everyone, we have learned that we have to work on transportation and not going out so much to reduce our usage of CO2. And well, that's it for this episode. Please share my podcast with your friends and family. I'll see you next time on A Change is a Chance.